What I remember most are the sounds. The explosive impact of rocks and bricks smashing through the windows of the school bus. The quick swirling speed of shattered glass missing my face by inches. The piercing, frightful screams of injured children frantically crying out for someone to rescue us. My body crouching under the seats of the school bus, crawling, burrowing deep into the floor in hopes of finding refuge. My name is Leola Hampton, and I was a high school student in 1974 when Boston began its busing program. It was September 12th, 1974, the first day of school. Through the chaos, I hear the unforgettable chanting by the angry white protesters as they stood by defiantly, with fists held high, singing out in unison, "Hell no, we won't go." The words grabbed me tight, slowly eroding what little self-esteem I developed at that point in my life. I watch how smoothly their mouths formed the word nigger and how easily it molded to fit their jawline, how effortlessly and unrestrained it slipped through their teeth, eagerly inching its way out into the atmosphere. Nigger, nigger, nigger resounded endlessly in quick successions like loud, angry thunder. I felt the word nigger bounce off the school bus, float throughout the crowd, then finally sink into the streets and sidewalk, leaving the stain and stink. On that day, something changed in me. At age 14, though I didn't have the language then to articulate what human betrayal actually felt like, I now think back and wonder how my underdeveloped sensibilities were given a crash course in this country's long and ugly history of anti-Blackness. But the impossible happened that year while attending school in Southie. In the midst of all the ugliness of busing and the overt disregard for our well-being, there was a ram in the bush. Of all places, home economics class became our safe space. In cooking class, I was no longer insignificant. All of us were able to be what we were supposed to be, students. Our teacher was a young white woman who appeared to be barely out of college, with wire-rimmed glasses, impressively dressed in all the latest 70s fashion. I remember how her eyes held us in the wholeness of who we were. She seemed to have an apologetic disposition, letting us know that we didn't have to be afraid and that we'd found an ally in her. Eventually, we dropped our guards and stopped holding our breath. Her classroom became a place where we could actually breathe. We found ourselves in multiple intriguing conversations with big open mouth smiles that mushroomed into pearls of laughter. We were having fun, captivated by the stories she shared with us about her roommates' dating adventures. We were encouraged to express ideas, and as thoughts were challenged, our minds were unrestrained with the freedom to explore. Unfortunately, though, not every class provided an atmosphere for learning. Education was secondary to survival, as we were carelessly thrust into an egregiously violent environment that, at its core, was completely devoid of any level of comprehensive learning. Education was camouflaged in the rhetoric of a school committee that never had the best interest of Black children. Until we re-examine racism's historical past, how it influences laws, how we misinterpret history, and how it impacts regulations and institutional practices throughout society, until it is properly addressed, we will continue to have a legacy of distrust and hindered racial progress.